the minds. With us now from Houston is the big brain, Jeff Rowe, Republican strategist and former campaign manager to Ted Cruz's presidential bid. And with us from Chicago, also a genius. We found him weeping over his Cubs loss last night in that horrible game one of the World Series. Hari Savugan, who's a former senior spokesman for President Obama's 2008 campaign and a former national press secretary for the Democratic National Committee. Gentlemen, welcome. I'm going to ask you both the same question, something Mark and I have been discussing and puzzling over for the past 2 days. Jeff, I'll start with you. This new AP poll, not inconsistent with a lot of other national polls, has Hillary Clinton up by 14 points nationally. And yet on the same day, Bloomberg Politics, as one example of many battleground polls, shows the Florida race tightening and Trump only back by 2. So how do we reconcile the wide lead that Hillary Clinton has in the national polls with the much tighter state of affairs in the battleground states?
Well, it's political malpractice to have a national 2 weeks out from an election. But if you want to talk about the disparity is actually that they just get the natural coverage that goes with the presidential campaign nationally. They don't get the state by state. They don't get the advertising. They don't get the visits. They don't also get to really have the vibe of the campaign going on in their communities. They don't have activities. They don't have volunteerism. They don't have signs. They don't have any sort of aspect of a real campaign. So disparity runs at what the national performance of the national election looks like, and that typically is astray, much more so this year than normal because there's been so much negative information from a national perspective against Trump. But these state-by-state polls are all close, all margin of error, in every state that Donald would need to win.
Hari, same question to you, my friend.
Yeah, look, I think the polling is it's always going to be a greater disparity on the national level than in some of the swing states. That's why they're swing states to begin with. What I'm really looking at now, though, is more hard data that isn't as volatile, and that's the early vote numbers. So you look at a state like Florida, where Bloomberg had a poll out today, but the early vote numbers there are very encouraging for Hillary Clinton. You know, essentially they're tied in ballots that have come in between Republicans and Democrats in terms of that partisan split, whereas at this point in 2012, the Republican number was +5. So that, you know, the support score that you're going to see in polling is going to be a little bit more volatile. The hard data is what campaigns should be focusing on right now, and that's very encouraging for the Clinton campaign.
Jeff, we've heard talk of some Senate candidates, some House candidates concerned. I know you're in touch with a lot of folks who are running down ballot. Where does the level of concern or panic sit currently with Senate and House candidates on the Republican side, given Trump's circumstances?
Well, I think what everybody is bracing for is the national poll ever going to translate to these Senate races? So far, it's actually had a bit of an inverse relationship. As Trump has fallen, some of these Senate candidates have increased. I mean, in most, frankly, in the most of the really targeted seats in the last 2 weeks, maybe with the exception of Florida and New Hampshire, but outside of those, they've all almost inversely been a beneficiary of the Trump fall. And so that's been encouraging. But I think what everybody's doing is, you know, the fraternity party and you're down in the basement and it's starting to sway a little bit and the floorboards are starting to have a little dust come out from under them. I mean, everybody's worried about a collapse. And when you see the Democrat money come into play and the super PAC money really pile in, everybody's worried about that. There are no signs yet of softening. In fact, it's gotten stronger. But that's what everyone's concerned about. But we haven't seen that expose itself yet.
Hari, as Republicans, who some have already begun to do, start to say, Hillary Clinton, we need a check on Hillary Clinton, basically telling voters, vote for Republicans for Congress to stop Hillary Clinton from having a majority. What's the right Democratic counter message for that if that begins in earnest?
Well, yeah, I actually don't even think you need one. I mean, it puts Republicans in a very difficult spot. So you look at like Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania, who can't answer whether he's going to vote for Donald Trump or not. I mean, we saw what happened to Allison Lundgren Grimes in the last cycle when she couldn't answer who she voted for president. That's going to put them in a very difficult spot. We're seeing that same dynamic play out with Kelly Ayotte in New Hampshire, to a great degree with Joe Heck in Nevada. That question or that position where they have to essentially throw their presidential candidate under the bus is going to anger the Republican base. They're sort of in a position where they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. And I would say that the point raised earlier about the floor falling out, it has. The Cook Political Report today switched their rate to say that Democrats are going to pick up 5 to 7 seats, and for the first time they are saying that the Democrats are going to take the Senate back. So there's definitely signs of a shift, and it's because these Republicans are in a very difficult position.
Hari, I want to stick with you for a second and go back to your earlier answer, which pointed to early vote in Florida, something that I cited when we talked about this earlier in the show and you just cited. Is there any reason, obviously every campaign would like to bank votes. That's always, you'd rather bank the votes than be able to work on getting more new votes. But my question for you is, at this moment, is there any concern on Democrats' part that there's a lot of Democratic early vote right now because of a kind of sense of catharsis? The notion that, Democrats have been itching to vote against Donald Trump for so long that they're rushing into the early vote, but that may not end up being any different in terms of the raw totals when we get to Election Day.
Yeah, I don't think we're cannibalizing our Election Day vote at all. And what I think this is really a result of, I do think that there is this enthusiasm, certainly, and you were seeing it in states where we hadn't necessarily expected it. So, we're looking at early vote numbers in Harris County, Texas, and Dallas County, Texas, that are through the roof. In Travis County, where Austin is, it's up 100% compared to 2012. That's enthusiasm. That's just raw enthusiasm. But what I do think it is a result of is a really sophisticated data program where we've targeted voters and been engaging with them for a very long time and getting them out through sophisticated plans for early vote. And we'll have that same kind of targeting for Election Day GOTV as well. But that's an investment in data and targeting and field that the Republican campaign hasn't had.
Great. Jeff, let me ask you the last question here. There are 4 states, traditionally red states, where Hillary Clinton is now, looks like she's inside the margin of error. Georgia, Texas, Arizona, Utah. Which of those 4 states should Donald Trump be most worried about?
Arizona would be the one. I mean, Arizona has been soft for quite some time, all the way through the general election. And that is a place where the early vote can manifest itself in a real way. And so I think another stop there, maybe sending Pence there. Utah's going to come around. They're going to be fine. Texas is a pipe dream. They're just cannibalizing the Election Day vote. And Democrats are just voting earlier. Yeah. It doesn't mean it's energy. Republicans nationally, there's been 8 million people vote as of today, and more Republicans have voted than Democrats. So I don't think that's the case. But Arizona is a place I would watch, particularly with the Hispanic population growth there since 2012. I would keep an eye on that state. Okay.
Jeff Rowe, Hari Savugan, thank you both. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. You're both really smart. We'll have next a campaign surrogate showdown here. And